Okay, so we start with introducing ourselves. I'm Marianne Pelletier. Greg.
I'm Greg Duke.
So my expertise is data science. Greg's expertise is programming, but also brilliant insights into random things that I get stuck on. So if you want brilliant insights, get a coaching hour with him. We're also joined by our marketing director who said she would just listen quietly, Gayla. You're welcome to just say hi if you want verbally.
Hi, I'm in the
Thank you.
background.
Isn't that rude of me to put you on the spot?
No, not at all.
Okay. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about using RFM for more than just doing it once and then saying, I don't see what it gives me, right? We're going to talk about RFM in 5 styles, actually. And it's based on the book that is now sitting with our editor before it goes to Gala for design, called RFM for, I think it's 5 ways to do RFM for fundraising. We made such a long title, I don't remember it. But let's take a look at some of these ideas. If you're new to water cooler chats, please do pop questions into the chat or unmute and talk. I understand that this is lunch hour for anybody in Eastern time or anybody who's hungry early in Central time, and breakfast for some people on the West Coast time. So I understand if you are not showing your face, that's fine. But if you have a question or comment, you feel like speaking up, go ahead. Just say my name, Marianne or Greg, or say Greg's name, and then we'll stop, because these are about present. This isn't a presentation as much as it's a discussion. Okay. So what is recency? So RFM comes from retail. Okay. So it's about purchases. All right. It's about how many times do you buy Coca-Cola? How recently have you bought Coca-Cola? And how much money have you spent on Coca-Cola? Okay. And we're using it in nonprofits for giving most of the time. Until you watch this presentation, then you'll start using it for different things. Okay. So recency is how recently would you make a gift?
Yes.
If you're having a chat with someone else, please do mute because you're coming across. Thank you.
I want to talk to you fully about all this because
I'm going to mute you anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So frequency is how many gifts have you made, and how many gifts is it new pledges and outright gifts, or is it pledge payments as well? And that has some relationship to what you're actually assessing, and we'll talk about that further. Okay. And then monetary is what is lifetime giving. And lifetime giving we have to define, right? I advocate using 1 to 5 bins when we're putting people in different bins, because 3 is not parsing fine enough. You want to know the top 20% of your pool. I've always said the top 5% of your donors is your major gifts pool, right? So you want to see the top. And then the other piece is that you will have some screening vendors who will send you these RFM scores, and they're 115 or something. And we don't sum the scores. And as you see what each of those 3 scores mean, you'll see why I don't like that at all. Okay, so in these bins, 555 is the top score. It's the most recent, most frequent, and highest value prospect or donor that you've got. And on this slide, it says 111, but later you're going to witness Greg and me having a debate about 111. Okay, so when you do RFM, and the book shows you how to do it in Excel and how to do it in Power BI, when you do RFM, you're going to put your data points into 5 bins each. And it's not the people into 5 bins. It's not 20% of the people. It's the values. So if you have half your database, their last gift was $10, $10 might be your bin 1, and half your database is going to live in bin 1, if that makes sense. On this slide, I advocate for new pledges and gifts into 5 bins. If you're an annual giving program and you work for, say, public radio or public television, you're going to probably be tempted to look for pledge payments, because do monthly sustaining donors, do they have a certain lifetime value that advocates for or indicates better personalized attention, right? Mm-hmm. And then lifetime giving is lifetime giving, but of course, what is giving? Okay, so does my plain gift count? Do my in-kind gifts count? When I worked with a museum, I discovered that their in-kind gifts count. They couldn't value them, but that someone gave an in-kind gift was very much associated to, very much associated with, sorry, the person following up with an endowment, right? So I give you a piece of art, then I give you the endowment to maintain it. So you're going to produce 3 scores across the board. Okay, someone is requesting to record the meeting. The meeting is already being recorded. You'll be able to watch the replay. Okay. So this is what I talk about for Y5 bins. So your top 20th percentile, if you think about your SAT scores or your GMAT scores, right? Your top 20th percentile are your very top level donors. And one of the ways that I've helped my colleagues when I was working in universities, and when I helped my colleagues understand how to staff, was when I showed that their top 20th percentile started at $1,500 lifetime. Now, this poor department head, he was frustrated, but I said to him, the thing is, though, this is an indication that you need to work more with corporations and foundations because they like your stuff. These are your causes. And then he did. He hired somebody. And the guy came in, he met me, and he said, you're the reason I have a job. Okay? And you're not compressing the highest level donors, but you're taking that, we have, this many $100,000 donors. We have $1 million donor. We have one $25 million donor, right? That $125 million donor is not screwing up your regression analysis. That person just lives in the top 20th percentile. Okay? And it keeps your range from getting too high. Greg, do you have any other comments about this one?
No, one thing I would say is that, and I'll be talking about this when Marianne and I have our little debate, is you can see here that this is a bin that includes only gift amounts. And there is a debate on whether someone, if they have given a gift amount of 0, do we count them in bin 1? Or do we leave them out of the RFM altogether? So in this case, this case, we can see everyone's in 5 bins, but they've all given money.
Great. Yeah, cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what are these bins defining? Well, they're split by the number of values, as I explained, right? And so when it comes down to it, for some clients, and even for some of the work that I've done for myself, I've ended up with empty bins. I've ended up with only 3 bins when I've tried to define 5. Because if I'm, say, there was a train museum that I talked to once at a conference, someone from a train museum. Well, a train museum, it's a membership program. It's a set membership price. The people who tend to be train members tend to be homogenous, right? And so everything, a lot of the stuff was the same, including their lifetime value and their annual giving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So let's look at an overall RFM, and I use overall RFM in the book to talk about major gifts. And if you have questions or comments, please pop them in here. Okay. And so you want to first make some decisions about this. The first one is, as I've already hinted at, you want to decide between whether you're going to count new gifts and commitments only, new gifts and pledges only, or if you're going to count pledge payments. And as I said, for a public radio or public television that really relies on credit card monthly giving, it might be pledge payments are worth it. Or I would build 2 scores. We now have the technology to build all the different RFM scores we want, and then we don't have to really do any extra work because we'll spend all day explaining, no, this one is like this. That one is different because it measures that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So also, but the thing to think about with your major gifts donors is that you ask them for a 5-year commitment. They make the 5-year commitment. 4 years later, they look like a stale donor. And so that's something to be keeping in mind as well. Okay. And remember that what do you count does matter. Okay. So when we talk about engagement, events fees, and we talk about memberships later in this presentation or in our meeting today, we're going to hit those questions. Do I pull out memberships? So like Greg is suggesting, if I'm a non-donor, but I've paid every year for the top level subscription to the theater, then I'm still worth something, right? Maybe not major gifts, but we'll talk about that when we get to engagement. Okay, so for this part of it, you're just segmenting your entire pool to make sure that you've swept up all of the possible major gifts prospects, sent them to your research team for research qualification, right? And then sent the good ones, the ones that qualify according to your strategy, into the gift officer pool, okay? It allows for continual prospecting. If your RFM scores are constantly refreshed, it allows for continual prospecting. It does segment major gifts, annual giving, and people who belong in engagement. People whose scores are 111 belong in engagement. Okay, later when we talk about 000, those people absolutely belong in engagement. What you see on the right of the slide is an illustration that I did while I was exploring the book. If I explain to you how to do it, and I explain how to do this in the book that's coming out, the book would be twice as long and it would take twice as long to get it out to you. But let me know, or go ahead and send stuff on to me that if you're interested in learning how to do upgrade, remain the same, and downgrade in RFM scores year to year. So we have someone who went from 421 to 114 in the next year. And so what does that mean, right? And these numbers here is recency, frequency, and monetary for the year. Okay, so if I did year by year RFM, who's the top of my class this year? And that gives me hand raisers. I'm always talking about hand raisers. Hey, I doubled my giving over last year. Pay attention to me, right? Okay, so this is a very old slide. Gail, whose last name I can't remember, from Wealth Engine, and I did a presentation together, and she let me have the slide. But what it means is that this is a segmentation piece, right? So these greens, it says research, right? And the yellows are upgrade. These are your people you want to upgrade, right? And then the grays are engage. It says acquire, reacquire, but engage them. Does that make sense? Questions or comments right now? Okay, I'm trying to set my my second screen up so I can see all you all. Okay. All right. Well, I will not nag you to ask a question. All right. So the piece about using your overall RFM score is you're going to build a heat map. You're going to build a heat map. These are the major gift donors. This is what their recency and frequency bins look like. I don't need monetary because monetary says to me that they've made a major gift. So their monetary is higher on average than everybody else, right? But recency and frequency, what was it? Okay, so a recency bin of 5 and a frequency bin of nothing, right? They haven't given a frequency. And so this is where when Greg advocates for zeros, zeros would be very helpful, but also recency frequency of 5 and 5. Okay, this is the darkest or the largest number of people, and it makes up the majority of people. Well, it makes up what, a little more than a quarter of the people who are major gifts donors. So it tells me that they make a gift and then they make the major gift, right? And then that's something that we do when we do modeling. Not only do we model what is the velocity of someone the year before she makes her first major gifts, but also, thanks, Christine. Thanks, Christine. Sorry, I was thinking I was saying Christine. But also, what is the RFM score of somebody who's about to make a major gift? Because what if they're consistent? And because you solicit in a consistency and a consistent pattern, do they also give in a consistent pattern? Because this is the problem with trying to measure people's behavior. Coca-Cola puts their Coke everywhere. They're essentially just, and so it's up to it. When I choose a Coca-Cola, it's not because Coke asked me to buy a Coke, because they're asking me to buy a Coke all day, every day, right? When I make a major gift, it's not only because I want to make the major gift, it's because somebody cultivated me and solicited me to make the major gift. I'm going to take a sip of water. And okay. All right. So let's torque this a little bit and move on to plan giving, right? In plan giving, according to the research that Lawrence Henze did in the early 90s, and his literature is still out there for you to go grab. Just look him up and say plan giving, and I was looking at a slide presentation that he did with someone else. Recency matters the most. that just now I paid attention to you. So if you think of a friend you had 5 years ago, if you called that friend now, what would be the likelihood that that friend would be like, why are you calling me? Or pick up where you just left off, right? Frequency matters a lot. If I'm consistent about my giving to you, then I'm a good plan giving prospect. And of course, I need to be old enough for the tax deduction to be worth it, right? And monetary means less. So it's the way Lawrence and even some of the people that I've worked with before describe it. It's the little old lady who, gives a little bit every year, keeps her investments to take care of herself because she doesn't have anyone else helping to support her, and then she leaves all her big money over to her favorite place. Don't you want to be that favorite place, right? Okay. So your consideration for plan giving is, what if we calculated somebody's RFM the day before he made his first plan gift? What would it show us? And wouldn't it be fun to be able to calculate that? Well, I show you how to calculate that. And this screenshot is from Power BI because it's easier to screenshot than Excel. And so this is someone's pre-plan giving score, 511, recency of 5, frequency of 1. I gave you one gift. I just gave you my first gift. But because I'm on this slide, because I'm on this list, I filtered only plan giving donors. I made a plan gift. Is that fun? All right. And so this is recency of been 1, but I gave you 61 gifts. And look at this monetary that I gave before I made my first major gift. Now, the thing to think about this particular slide is to know that I made this data up. So Greg and I do lots of interesting tricks. Greg, the trick that you did to build people's names is you put the most common 100 names.
That's right. Yes. And
yeah.
Lastly, I did a middle initial, just random letters of the alphabet. So if you're interested in the program I use to create that, then just let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, not that you'll ever need it for anything, but
but maybe, right? I mean, we had to create fake data in order to do our online courses, but also to do our own experiments. So this is all fake data. So this is not real, but I'm just telling you how I would interpret this slide if it were. Okay. Still no questions or comments? Oh, I'm going to take it that you guys are terribly well entertained. All right. So let's talk about annual giving. And annual giving is year by year. So this is a place where an RFM year by year, what was my RFM for last year? And it's cumulative, right? So because it's my lifetime monetary value, what's my RFM this year? Okay. Or what is my RFM just for the year? Right. And so then recency is within a 365-day bucket. Okay. So annual giving is all about the slicing. Okay. And so it's about finding the right time, the right place, the right way, and the right ask amount. Frankly, ask amounts becomes one of the things that clients engage us for, especially for their giving days, right? So they say, what is the optimal ask amount for this person? And then give us like one down and one up for the 3-thing ask amounts. And we use confidence intervals for that. It's great. By the way, if you're trying to figure out ask amounts for your prospects, do a confidence interval, right? So it's like so that you can get the mean that this person was likely to give, and then one confidence interval or one step down, 5% confidence interval, and then 95% confidence interval. And then you've got your 3 ask amounts. Of course, you've got to roll it up to the nearest $5 or roll it up to the nearest $50 so it still makes sense. Okay. So scores by each angle can help identify the best segmentation. So if you did RFM scores by solicitation method, so just take only direct mail solicited people, and here's where Grace comment about, look, this is only donors. Well, no, you can include everybody who got direct mail and build an RFM score for them for the year and see what happened versus the RFM scores that you build for the people who were solicited by phone or solicited by text or solicited on giving day. Okay. And then pay method is one of the things that always comes back to haunt me, because I discovered years ago that every client, including places where I've worked, where where they gave a stock gift was a huge indicator of a future major gift. Okay. And if you think about it, that's an indicator of wealth, stock gift. It used to be an indicator of wealth. I mean, I own stock, right? And my stock is Hershey, by the way, if you're thinking about it. And then it's also an indication of somebody who's being planful, because if I give a gift of appreciated stock, I get a nice big tax deduction in exchange for a lower price. Okay. And I don't pay tax on the appreciation. I mean, beat that, right? And then time of year. In September, am I going to give you more money, or am I going to give you more, like, am I a more frequent donor when you solicit me in September than when you solicit me in December and tell me last minute blah blah blah? Okay. And then once I understand all these things, I can put people into the right buckets, right time, right place, right way, and right ask amount according to their preferences, not according to mine. Joshua Burkholz calls this channel preference. Penelope Burke calls it donor-centered fundraising. And so you want to read her books, because as we get everything in our lives get more and more customized to us, I mean, even ChatGPT has figured out my personality and loves to pat me on the head a lot because I dig it. You know what I mean? So we have to be more customized and personalized to people. We can't just say, dear friend. I throw away stuff that comes to me and says, dear friend. I know how to put my name in something. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if we look at a annual giving segments, this is recency, frequency, and monetary value by campaign. Okay. And we'll see that outreach programs is not on top when it comes to recency. What's on top is the education programs. That's the campaign. But when we look at outreach programs, it's the most frequent. Okay, so just the urgency of doing outreach for whatever this fake organization does is what's really making it work for people. Okay, and also they have the highest value prospects. Now, this is not only an excuse for everybody in all the other programs, the theater, the annual giving program, and the endowment, to be jealous and annoyed, right? But it's also, it says that this program is not only worth investing in for more personalized attention, but also take some of the direct mail stuff out of this program and give it to the other ones that could use some more help, right? Like education, right? And this is, by the way, this reminds me, Business Networking International taught me that you can't just talk about what you do and have people decide that they want you. You have to talk about what problem of theirs that you're going to solve, and you have to know who they are to do it, right? So one of my favorite learning experiences at Cornell was that people didn't want to give to scholarships because that didn't relate to them somehow. But when they talked about the student experience, the freshman student experience especially, they were all over that. Okay. And so what does that say to us, right? Supporting students was important to them. Supporting faculty was less, right? But what does it say? What in your organization gets people to react, right? And one of my favorite consultants, Maya Gassick, says, we do not raise money so that we can feed people. We raise money so that people can be fed. And the first time I heard her say that, it blew my mind so much. She looked at me like I was having a stroke, but it blew my mind. She's right, right? So when we say outreach programs, the outreach programs is absolutely showing what their value is, okay? And it touches people in the heart, right? And education, and who's got the lowest one? Let's say education and endowments, whatever, right? That's just you supporting you. Okay. And yeah, if we think about pay method, and this is these are the bin definitions. So the bottom of this bin is $4, right? And for checks, for receiving checks, credit cards, and crypto is, what is crypto? It starts at 5,000, right? The highest gift possible was made with a check, okay? But the highest threshold started the highest with crypto. And that, I set this data up so that it's in line with what trends are right now. But credit cards have lower level donors. The question is which one of these has the highest frequency? If I set frequency next to this, would I see credit card as the highest, or would I see credit card as the same? Okay. Is this fun? Can I get a whoop whoop?
I just want to know who put a gift of $644,000 on a credit card.
Oh. Thank you, Mackenzie.
Visa wouldn't let me do that.
Well, at some point, your credit is limitless. And what is it? There was in the 80s, there was a story of a guy who won a gosh, won an auction for an art piece, and he put the art piece on his American Express so that he could get points out his ears, right? So yeah, that's what's that. So yeah, but you're right, Greg. This is we know this is fake data. So thank you for the whoop whoop. Now let's torque it again and go over to engagement. Okay. So for engagement, we're just using engagement activities. So when people are engaged with you, they're not going to pay to be on your social media page, but they might pay to come to an event. They might buy raffle tickets. They might make a gift while they're at your hockey game or whatever, right? If you put up the right QR codes and give them tech stuff. And I don't know if that matters at a gift or as an event, important, whatever. Event is this little station method, I guess. Okay. But we're going to use engagement activities instead of gifts. So as you can imagine, monetary means less, except that somebody who has highest monetary value in the engagement sphere, but doesn't necessarily have a high monetary value in the gift sphere, is a prospect for being cultivated to come into the giving fold. Okay. Now, recency is the date of their last interaction. And this begs the question, how do I track everybody's interactions? Events, we talk to a lot of clients where they're like, yeah, we track events in an Excel form. And then poor Greg has to figure out how to get them into Razor's Edge, right? But we also have other things like they react to our social media. Well, how do we track them against their username, right? And all that stuff, right? And that's all obvious, okay? And annoying. So I'm going to walk past it, all right? Frequency is the count of interactions, okay? And let's take a look at what interactions I'm talking about, okay? So if I'm responding to an event, if I accept that I'm coming, or even if I say that I'm not coming, that's actually a response, and I get some credit for that. And later, I think I talk about how if I say, yes, I'm coming to an event, but I don't come, I get a half a point. So engagement gets a little quirky, okay? If I send you something, right? Imagine people who are actually thoughtful enough to send you a card or a letter, right? Or an email, write you an email. That means something, okay? And if I'm allowing you to send me a newsletter. So one of the ways that I talk about tracking this is that if I'm getting the newsletter, I get a 1. If I unsubscribe from the newsletter, I'm getting a -1. And so that's a way of saying my engagement swung to the negative end of the world. Okay. If I connect to you via LinkedIn, you can find me that way because I have a first name and last name on LinkedIn. If I have a volunteer role, and then there's tiers of volunteer roles if you want to figure out how to get complicated with your scoring, right? Or I've given you any piece of information. I have something that I've talked about forever now about the information score. If I give you my spouse's name, my children's name, where I work, and whether or not my company is a matching gift, those are 4 things that I wouldn't give an organization that I didn't care about. Okay. So that's important. Now, if I like your social media content and you actually have my social media handles tracked in the database, wouldn't that be a cool database updated project? Then that's something, right? And especially if I advocate for you. And so early in the internet era, especially on LinkedIn, they talked about asking people to wear a badge on their LinkedIn page that says that we're their favorite. And so that's something to think about, to ask people, like put us on your about, especially if you graduated from us, please put us on your about. Okay. And then organizations, colors, or flags in your house. Well, how do you track that? Okay. And then writes about you on your behalf, especially if you're a cause-based organization. Right now, the very important thing is to write to our congressman and say, dude, bring back the grants. Okay. Or do that. Okay. So notice that engagement see the monetary 378 million is ridiculous, but see the monetary in a real situation would likely to be lower because we're not talking about, not every engagement has a value, right? But in giving, every gift does have a value. Okay. And so if we look at, what is must be engagement, this must be frequency, sorry. And then recency today. I did something with you today, but I did something with you over a year ago is bin 5. And then this is how many, what is that, 10 years ago?
Yeah, so that's in days, right? Days from today.
It's days. Thanks, Greg. So what is this, 100 years ago?
No, that would be a little over 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Thanks, Greg. So at least it's reasonable data. So my data is not that ridiculous, except when you look at the monetary stuff. Okay. And notice that the most recency we want lower, monetary we want higher in our highest bins. Okay. And now you get to watch our debate. Okay. So Greg, do you want to talk about your 000 theory?
Okay. Well, I think this came up when we were working on a we were working on a calculation technique. I believe it was in Power BI, so DAX language,
Yes.
on how to rank people in RFM. And I mentioned, kind of almost as an aside, that I call unengaged or non-donors 000 instead of 111. And Marianne's like, well, why do you do that? Because she'd done 111. And the way I see it is RFM was originally created by businesses. So let's say, just because I live almost next door to the Target here, let's say I go to Target, and I don't go there very often. So I do buy stuff, but I don't buy stuff very often. So I'm a low RFM. But what if I never go to Target? Well, I'm not in their system then, because they don't know I exist. I've never been there, and so they don't put me in their database. And that's pretty much the case for any business, that if you don't go and you never buy anything there, they don't know about you. But nonprofits are different. I work for a lot of universities, and in the past, I worked for a university that's very new, and their alumni base is very young. So they have a lot of alumni who've never given. And if I did a bin of for monetary of all of the alumni at that university, anyone who gave would be in bin number 5, because fewer than 20% of their alumni have ever made a gift, because they're such a new institution. And when I thought about that, I thought, well, wouldn't it be better to put non-donors in a special category so that we can see them, and also it gives us a better understanding of our actual donors. It doesn't make sense to have your worst and your best donor in the same category, at least to me, if you have a lot of non-donors. But it does make sense to split those. The person who's given $2, make sure they're in bin 1, and then the person who gave $1 million is going to be in bin 5. And there's a second reason, after I discussed this, where I thought of a second reason, and that is it just makes it a lot easier to categorize your non-donors and your non-engaged. So let's say you've got a program with a filter, say Power BI or Excel if you're using filters, and you don't want to see any of your non-donors. Well, you can just blip those out by excluding 000. You can't exclude 111 because maybe you're going to exclude some donors, but excluding 000, if you only mark them that way, it's a lot easier to identify the people who are non-givers. And also, I think it's just, once people see that, it stands out a bit more. When you're looking at something like this, you see 000, you immediately think, oh, this is someone with no engagement, no donations. It just really points out that feature. So that was my side of the debate anyway.
So my side of the debate was everybody was 111 to 555. And so, the whole notion of giving them 000 was a brand new thought to me. Mm-hmm. So the overall RFM score that I demonstrate has 111 to 555. But like Greg said, a lot of databases have 2/3 of their records as non-donors. And maybe even a good portion of the records is not engaged. So how do we mark them? Mm-hmm. Right? And so if you have somebody whose giving is 432, but their engagement is 000, then, what do we do with that? Right? Mm-hmm. I thought I heard somebody come up with a question.
Oh, haven't seen anything on text.
Okay. Okay. Great. All right. So think about it. I show both ways. Okay. And so now let's talk about membership. Membership is the same thing. Membership is data. There are no gifts in membership, right? Just membership. Now think about all the ways that you have memberships. If you're at college, you have alumni, you may have a
Oh,
theater.
Marianne, Dominic has a question. Would you exclude non-donors in your model? And I assume he means, the predictive or analytic models.
Dominic, no, I wouldn't. I don't exclude non-donors, although you're asking because I need to know the differentiation between somebody who is a donor and a non-donor, especially when it's like new donors. Everybody who's a new donor last year versus the rest of the world that are non-donors. What is the difference between those two? Mm-hmm. What's the difference between a major gift donor and someone who's a non-donor? So in my model, no. When I'm selecting, I'm trying to figure out if you're asking actually about modeling or you're asking about building an RFM score. When I'm building the RFM score, I essentially say, like Greg suggested, the coding says, if their recency is null, then the recency score is 0. And then from there, do the 5 bins. So were you answering your question?
Yes, thank you. That's the one.
Okay, you're welcome.
And I would agree with that because, like Marianne says, if you want to know why non-donors turned into donors, you have to include the non-donors in your model.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah. So no, we wouldn't count them as part of the bins if we're doing the 000 model versus the 111. Okay. So let's talk about memberships. Okay. So memberships, if you're a college, you've got athletics, you've got art centers, you've got stuff, alumni membership stuff, right? If you are an art museum, of course you have memberships and sustainers and people. If you're PBS, you've got, members who get to watch better TV than the rest of us, right? So that everybody has some kind of membership thing, or just about everybody has some kind of membership thing, okay? The membership price itself is monetary. So recently, one of the things that I did was I did an analytics model that said of the 100,000 records you've got in your database, these are the 35,000 records that you should send to screening. Because the database was full of all kinds of people who were one-off ticket buyers, or it was a concert venue, one-off ticket buyers, or friends of somebody, you know what I mean? And so my job was to get them from paying for 100,000 to paying 35,000, and they paid me less to do that work than they would have paid to screen the 100,000. Okay. And so one of the things that I showed was where they sat. Okay. But so the membership price is monetary and it matters. Okay. The last membership renewal date is recency. And if you are a museum, like I think of the Corning Museum of Glass, the last time I visited could also be recency. Okay. So am I there? All right. And the count of memberships is frequency. Now, if you ask me to renew my membership once a year, then my frequency over the last 5 years is going to be at most 5. Okay. But it's all going to be relative. So if I skip a year when the economy goes down, then that's a signal. Okay. If I don't skip a year when the economy goes down, that's also a signal. Okay. So if we have enthusiastic members like Ms. Rogers has a 355 high monetary and is also a very enthusiastic member, right? Renewed membership this year, renews membership every year, obviously, and renews at the top membership level. Do you stick a Y in chat if you have any kind of membership program where you are? I should have put up a poll.
Oh, Suzanne put a Y up. Suzanne Harris.
Thanks, Suzanne. Okay. Thanks. Okay, keep putting them up.
And Holly says we consider monthly recurring donors in the membership. That's interesting because, if you want to talk about that, Marianne, that's an interesting point.
That is, and we have time to talk about it. Holly, do you mind sharing with us what organization are you with, or what type of organization? And you can chat or unmute, your choice. I know you put that up there.
Oh, feed North Carolina, a nonprofit for food insecurity. Okay.
So people give to you so that people can be fed.
Mhm.
I love that. Okay, so yeah, so and that's the same thing with PBS, right? So if I'm giving $1,000 a year off my credit card every month, I'm a sustaining member. And so for you, people are members. Now, can I be a super duper member? Like, does it go up in, I don't know how, if I were Feed North Carolina, what would I say? The rice version is 500 a year, but the beef version is 1,000 a year. I'm making fun right now, but do you have different thresholds? Sorry, levels?
We let them decide their level of
Oh, okay.
giving, and then hopefully they increase over time through, that relationship building
Mhm.
through there, that they would increase their monthly donation for sustainability. So,
Okay. So you don't
yeah.
have a recognition program because Feed America, when I get into it, sorry, when I'm doing a Feed North Carolina, I'm a donor, it's different than if I'm a donor to the Boston Symphony Orchestra, where I want to be seen
Mhm.
as a donor, right? So yeah, so you're talking to their hearts. That's great. Boy, that warms my heart, so knowing that you're out there. Okay. Well, thank you.
Kathy
Um,
Papiansky also said they have a membership at her place.
who's that?
Kathy Papiansky.
Oh, okay. Hey.
Mhm.
And so what's your place? Kathy, what kind of organization are you?
I work at Smithsonian, so we have lots of memberships.
Oh, yes.
Cool. Oh, wow.
Now, I remember talking to the researcher from the Smithsonian. The thought of getting to do analytics for the Smithsonian just makes me drool. So, but the problem with the Smithsonian data is that if I walk into the building and look at exhibits, you have no idea who I am, when I came in, how many tickets I bought, because I don't buy tickets. It's only when I become a member. And one of my favorite stories about using confounding to get at an answer, what I call looking at the footprints instead of the person, was the Smithsonian study they were trying to figure out which exhibits to upgrade first. And they finally figured out that ask maintenance to track where they replace floor tiles, because the floor tiles that get worn out the most are the exhibits that get looked at the most. Mm-hmm. So, oh man, you're so lucky to get to work with the Smithsonian. Okay.
Yeah, but we are changing things up more now because we are having you don't have to pay for the tickets to see the museums, but you do have to start at many of our more popular museums, you have to actually get a ticket to get in at a specific time.
Oh, because of COVID.
Yeah, that started during COVID, but we're finding that's helpful. People are making small contributions when they buy their tickets and things like that. So we're monetizing on that.
Nice. Now you're capturing data.
Yeah. Yeah. We like that.
You can look up their Yelp profiles and figure out where they go to dinner and ask those restaurants to do an event for you.
Good idea.
Anytime you want to talk, I'm all over wishing I could participate in Smithsonian stuff. Okay. But yeah, anytime you want to talk, let me know. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So once you figured out memberships, right? So we've looked at things lots of different ways. Okay. We've looked at this is the prospect scorecard that I keep talking about. It's based on the marketing book that I read. I mention it. You shouldn't just be looking at my ear while I try to find the book. That you can, if you set up these scores and they're understood, right? I was joking about you spend all day explaining, no, this score is different because it looks like this. Capacity ratings are interesting enough to explain to a gift officer, right? But if you have someone's overall score, their engagement score, their membership score, and their pre-planned giving RFM score, and if they don't have a planned gift, they don't get one, right? This person, and you see that there's a coding error on Natalie Wood. That's cute. Okay, there's a coding error in there that I would have to fix. But you see there's a 0 on this. I show up often, and by the way, I don't pay for anything. I call those wedding crashers, right? So that gives us a nice balance where we can sit there and not only cherry pick people for different programs, as long as our programs are intercooperative, but on top of that, we can figure out how to segment people. It's the place where we can find who is being left aside and not paid attention to. Okay? Versus our old-fashioned method of what we call hunt and peck, or in the 90s, they used to call it the rifle shot approach, just aim at one person, which I always thought was hilarious. And then they said, but you need to use the scatter shot approach. And I'm like, dude, we need to leave these people alive. So, but but once you have all these different scores, and you can, go ahead and comment or email me later, what would happen if we did this kind of score for my kind of thing? So if I were Feed North Carolina, do you have volunteers who make significant gifts and they like to work in the something room, right? So please don't ask me to sort cans. I'd rather, put stuff in bags, right? I've only visited one food bank, so I'm afraid of going too far with that metaphor and being insulting, right? And that's not or for me, my volunteership would be give me the heavy stuff to walk around with, because that's what I like to do, right? I'm a weightlifter, okay? So that's interesting to know. What are the things that people are interested in? And of the people who like to walk around with heavy stuff, what's their RFM for membership and their RFM for giving? Versus the people who want to come in and they want to sit in a room and chat with their friends and help some other way. Okay. So we're early because we have plenty of time for discussion. We can hang out. You can do this in Excel, and the book that's coming out at the end of March is going to talk about how to do this in Excel with significant input from Greg, our Duke of Excel. You're just going to pivot the values for each constituent. Then you're going to figure out the formulas that name the bins. And if you figure out the formulas in a way that they're constantly refreshing, then you're constantly refreshing people's RFM scores. And then you're going to assign those scores to take the bins back using VLOOKUP, which is a skill that Greg will teach you in one of his self-paced classes. I'm warming up for the sales pitch that comes next. You can assign your bins to each constituent. Greg, would you say that's easier or difficult to do?
I think it depends on your experience with Excel. I obviously, when the book comes out, you'll have the full instructions on how to do that. If you're familiar with rank EQ, that's a good way to do it. But even if you have no experience with Excel and you only know how to sort workbooks, you can do it by what us programmers call brute force, by just counting the number in each row, in each column. Sort the column, count the number of records in each column, divide that by 5, and then just putting a 1 next to the first fifth of the column, then a 2 next to the second fifth, and so on. So it takes a little while longer, but it doesn't take too long, and it'll be the correct. You'll get the correct information. So
I use percentile inclusive, to 1 to the 20th percentile, 21st to 22nd.
The auction is to satisfy
an
orders made on the content.
Great. Okay. Yeah, and so we actually have these conversations with each other.
We're so excited.
even when we're not eating sugar at a restaurant, we still have these conversations with each other. Okay. And you want people in your life who love having these conversations with each other, because you just want the answer, right? Unless you're that curious, right? Yourself. Okay. So Power BI, you use a bunch of DAX expressions, right? And so one of the examples of the expression is on the right. And the problem with the DAX expressions is that you end up creating measures because you want them to be constantly dynamic and renewing, which means that you can't, I found out yesterday when I was preparing the rest of this presentation that you can't put measures on a graph.
No.
So you can't tree map. You can build someone's RFM score, but you can't tree map it. Well, you don't want to tree map it anyway. It's 125 bins by the time you're done, right? Mm-hmm. So, however, if you want it as a segmenting tool and you want it as a scorecard tool, this scorecard is from Power BI. And it was easy to assemble because it's just put up a table, throw all of these columns together. I've already related all the tables, and it's great stuff. And then Power BI also did a great job of doing the change one. Oh, do I really want to take you back there? The one of the first few slides where I talk about how to make um, how to measure somebody's RFM changes. Okay.
Mhm.
So, okay, you can do this in Python, SQL, and R. I've done it at all three places. Greg, I'll bet you've done it in VBA by now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Watch this space for that. Is all I can say right now.
Yep. And the Python and R both have packages, but they don't come back with a score of 555. They come back with engaged customer, and so we have to think about how we want to use it. I have definitely done all three. Greg has definitely done it in VBA. He gave you another cliffhanger. I love that. And also, if you're going to do modeling, so Dominic talked about modeling, but we want to talk about if you wanted to, yeah, Gayla's presaging my next slide. Thank you, Gayla. If you're talking about modeling, you want to use you're going to model in Python, you can build the RFM scores in Python. It's just a matter of setting up bins, right?
Yeah. Jackie asks, she's new to Salesforce. Can this be done using their analytics?
Well, Salesforce is SQL in the background, so I'm not.
Yeah, theoretically, yes. If you can use the background the SQL, then yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what, because unfortunately I haven't used the Salesforce fundraising package yet, but depending on I'd have to take a look at the kind of the native tools in the Salesforce package. So, if you get access to the SQL, then yes.
I have used Salesforce fundraising, and when I walked into it, it felt like a 2-year-old walking into the cockpit of a huge airplane. It was just like, so Jackie, God bless you. But no, Salesforce is a powerful product for the right organizations. So what is Salesforce Analytics, though? Can you tell us more about that in case we're talking out our ears right now? And feel free to type or unmute. You probably said your question and then now you're resting. I'm going to keep talking until something happens.
Okay. Don't.
You don't know. Okay. So I don't know. I'm not familiar. We are a Salesforce partner. But our Salesforce administrator has drifted off of the Stop Hell team. So I'm gonna try to remember that you were the one that asked that question, Jackie, and see if we can get back to you on that, because I don't know what the Salesforce analytics tools are. But your programmer guys who have to program in SQL, they can build this for you. Okay. And this is the sales pitch. Okay. We do have offerings around RFM. So we are, my book is in with the editor, and yes, we're going to offer pre-sale as soon as we can. There are online courses on how to build that overall RFM in Excel. And so here's the link, but the link will also be available below the replay. Okay. And if you're like, well, wouldn't it be fun if I could do stuff in Power BI, but I need to take a Power BI class to blah, blah, blah. Well, you can take our Power BI class and just start as a beginner and end up with a major gifts dashboard. Okay. And then if you're like, well, I'm not sure I have the Excel skills. Well, Greg did a lot of self-paced Excel skills courses that are available on our resource page. So just go to stophell.com, click on the resource list, and look at our self-paced courses. All right. And we haven't raised the prices on those, and we haven't raised any of our prices in about 7 or 8 years because we've been trying to support you in a tumultuous economy. And of course, we're always available for coaching hours. Okay, and that's my last slide. So I'm happy to leave this up and talk about questions or comments. People are dropping off, but this is a great time to pop in and ask a question.
About when you're getting started with this, and if you have a database that maybe goes back 30 plus years of donors, and you have probably a large chunk of them that have not given in 20 to 30 years, is
Right.
it helpful to include those in the data set, or would
Sure.
you cut it off at some point?
I would not cut it off. And Greg, you agree, right?
Yeah, I agree because a donor who gave 20 years ago is still a donor. And maybe there's a reason why that donor hasn't given in 20 years. No matter what modeling we use, whether it's RFM or predictive modeling or binary logistical model, I want to make sure a donor is a donor. We have had so many. I've worked at a place like that where we had literally more than 100 years of donation records. And it's once someone gives that gift, even if it was like 20 years ago, they're more likely to give than a non-donor who's been around for 20 years. So I would include them. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Mackenzie. The thing is, what happened 20 years ago? Or do you have donors who have a pattern of giving for a period of time and then they drift off? When I did a study for the lab of ornithology here in Ithaca. Their memberships were good. I would repeat my membership for 6 years and then I would drift off. And I'm like, what happens in year 6 that you lose them? And they figured out that the answer was they treated them the same. So you picture, you give every year to the SPCA, and every year they send you this pre-formed letter that says, "Dear friend, here's your, return address stickers. Just give again." And so I'm not special to them. And so if you think about that's an analytics opportunity for you, right? And so what was going on in the economy? Did you have a change in leadership? Was it a unique event, or do you have people that give for a certain period of time? So you have people who dropped off 20 years ago, 19 years ago, 18 years ago. What's up with that? Because to acquire a donor takes a lot more energy than to renew one. So I love your question.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. I got 3 minutes and I'm going to give it all to you. We promised you an hour.
Yeah, Jackie says she's still absorbing everything, which
Yeah.
there's I know there's a lot of information here. I think the one thing I did want to mention about RFM that Marianne had said at the beginning that they're not scores to add. I think part of the big reason for that is when you filter your list on RFM, you can filter on everyone, as Mackenzie said, who gave a long time ago just by picking picking the one bin for recency. And you can just choose all the ones or all of the 5 monetary. That it's very easy to take a look at your donor base and see, for example, you've got a development officer going to a certain area. Well, you can see who their ones are, who needs to be cultivated. And you can also code in programs, both Excel and Power BI, that color coded, the gray, yellow, green, and blue. These are your top prospects. These are the ones that need engagement, etc. You can code that and just see those these ones. See that one. Yeah. See those particular segments.
Oh yeah, you teach that in the Power BI course that we offer.
Yeah.
Color. What is it? Conditional formatting.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a tool preference for analysis? So Jackie, since you have Salesforce, you're doing SQL. So I would output it to either Power BI, or if you have Tableau, Tableau is prettier, and you could do the analysis. Like the Power BI is powerful in that I can do the equations and I can do the graphs, right? Excel, I can do the equations. The graphs are okay, although unless Greg has them, then he makes them great, right?
Don't say that yet. I was about to say, yeah, if you're doing any form of graphing, I would prefer Power BI or Tableau. If you're publishing something, say this is something that will go in a magazine or you're presenting it to your board, I would prefer Tableau if you have it.
Yeah, because it's prettier.
and you can choose your your Pantone colors for your organization, which Power BI doesn't seem to get the colors always right. So
Also, that
uh,
mess with the measures. You can't put a measure on a graph, but when you're in Tableau and everybody says, "Well, what about that?" You can just and then show it to them. Sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. The bonus about Power BI is first that it's much more compatible with tools like Excel, a bit more compatible with SQL, which you have. Um, and then the other is that I think the underlying language is easier to use. The Tableau language always kind of frustrated me, but Power BI I was able to pick up pretty quickly.
I have an easier time with Tableau myself because I'm not Greg. But
That's because I'm more like Spock. And
yeah, but Jackie, the Airtable, StopBell has used Airtable for our online course catalog, but I haven't used Airtable to present data. Whoops. I haven't used Airtable to present data, so I'm really curious about what it would look like. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well,
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We appreciate y'all.
Yep.
It's good to see you. Email
Yep.
us with any questions you have. Greg or Marianne at stopbell.com.
All right. Thanks, everyone.